Good evening, everybody. Roger Durling, Executive Director of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and I'm excited to host a conversation with my dear friend, Perry Lang, who's had a very successful and multifaceted career as an actor, writer, and director. He's worked with Steven Spielberg, Sam Fuller, and several times with John Sayles. As a director, he's done features and episodes of iconic TV shows such as ER, NYPD Blue, Dawson's Creek, NCIS, Los Angeles, and Weeds, amongst other, and directed his own features, including Interview with God, his latest one. Let's take a quick peek at a scene from 1941, directed by Steven Spielberg, and then we'll start a conversation with Perry. Well, welcome, Perry. You had, previous to doing 1941 with Steven Spielberg, you'd done the Big Wednesday with John Milius, and prior to that, you done some TV shows, right? Including Hewitt's Just Different, which was an afternoon special.
Yeah, I think it aired once or twice, but I played a handicapped kid, and of course now you can't do that. You have to be handicapped, but I was, acting it, and but that really started me. That was after Big Wednesday, because I got my SAG card on Big Wednesday, and then the Big Red One, then 1941. Right.
Well, I'm glad that I brought up Hewitt's Just Different, because you actually play baseball and baseball is a big part of the storyline, and baseball somehow has played a big part of your entire career.
I know, yeah. That I did a TV series as an actor called Bay City Blues, which was by the same people that did Hill Street Blues and NYPD Blue, John, David Milch and Stephen Bochco, and then actually my first script that I sold
Roger Hedden
was a thing called Winter Ball, and we never got it made, but it really got me going as a writer. And so yeah, baseball, and then 8 Men Out.
8 Men Out, of course. So tell me about being cast in 1941 and working with Spielberg.
Yeah, that was a long process. Weirdly, it goes back to I was in Israel doing the Big Red One with Sam Fuller, and Bobby DeCicco and I would get down to the lobby early in the morning because we wanted to see Lee Marvin before we went to work. And Lee would get there early, and we would get to talk with Lee early in the morning. So Bobby and I were there, and Lee hadn't shown up. And I said, what's happening? He goes, well, I was cast in a Steven Spielberg movie. I'm playing this guy, Dennis DeSoto. And I'm like, great, that's amazing. And then at lunch, I toast him. Here's to Bobby playing Dennis DeSoto. Cut to months later, I'm auditioning in LA for this part of Wally, Dennis's best friend, and after 6 auditions and dancing and acting and dancing and acting, and Spielberg finally said, look, you can't dance. I mean, let's just face it. You're the best actor I've seen, but you can't dance. I mean, it's It's sad, but true. And what I'm doing is I'm thinking about taking DeChico's part and giving it to you and your part to DeChico. And I said, you know, none of us had read the script. So we thought, great, let's do that. And Spielberg said, I need 24 hours to think about it. And I'd auditioned I danced. I was just at the end of my rope. And John Milius was standing there, and my eyes ticked to John, and I don't know what, I mean, I was always obviously in despair. And John said, Stephen, make a decision. And Spielberg said, John, give me some time. I need to think about this. And he said, Stephen, does he have the part? Does he not have the part? And I'm, you know, here's John Milius and Steven Spielberg arguing. And Steven said, John, don't do this to me. And Milius literally said, does he have the fucking part or does he not have the fucking part? And Steven turned to me and said, you got the part, and walked out. And to this day, I think he would have changed his mind. It's ridiculous switching parts with another actor. But I ended up playing the part that DeChico told me that he was playing in Israel 3 months earlier. So I'm playing Dennis, he's playing Wally, and 7 months later, we finished the movie. So it was a long sort of education in film with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi and Tim Matheson, and just
and Robert Zemeckis wrote
and actually Zemeckis and Gale had helped me get into the audition. I had auditioned for I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I think Spielberg said no, but Zemeckis had called me even and said, you don't have the part. You know, I couldn't talk Steven into it. And but I remember Zemeckis and Gale on the MGM lot where I was auditioning, and they were in the men's room, and at the time at MGM, this is weird, you could be peeing in the men's room and look out the window at the lot, and I saw both of them standing there. I knew they were peeing, and they said, we put in a good word for you, and I got the part, so they helped.
And Perry, so here's Spielberg. This is right after he'd done Duel, Jaws, and Close Encounters. Right. And the man can do no wrong, but then 1941 fails. When you were filming, did you have any understanding that this film, the tone, wasn't right?
No, I thought at the time we were making, you know, the most, you know, fantastic comedy of all time. There's an old saying that if you laugh on the set, they're never going to laugh in the theater. At everything that happened, you know, we were laughing at. But, you know, it was tragic. The big premiere at the Pacific Theater, the Cinerama Dome, and it was they shut down, you know, Sunset Boulevard, and it was just this huge premiere and then a bomb. But since then, Bob Gale, who also lives in Santa Barbara, I think it was his cut. He recut the movie, and I saw it at UCSB, and it's good. I mean, it's a movie I'm very proud of now. So
no, I've seen it. It's become a cult status now. The film.
But I learned so much as a director, as an actor, as a person from Steven. I just bugged him all the time, and you know, so it was.
You told me at some point that Spielberg let you he showed you the dailies, which is something that he never does for anybody.
Yeah, he showed me dailies. He wouldn't show me dailies with actors in it. He showed me dailies of big stunts and stuff, and so that was pretty amazing. And of course, at the time, it was on a moviola, so they were running film through this tiny little moviola, and even then, I mean, Steven was saying, "Oh, it's just a fireball. That's horrible." Put a lot of metallic sounds of metal flying off of it, and you go, "Oh my God! You know, how did he think of that just off the top of his head?" He was so brilliant, and and then I started shooting 8mm film while we were shooting, and he said, that's a horrible camera. Let me give you my camera. You shoot all the 8mm film you want, and I'll give you all the film. And so I said, great. And I kept giving the film. He said, I'll develop it. You know, I kept giving it back to him, and I said, Stephen, you know, when are we going to see this? And he goes, oh, we'll screen it together. We'll screen it together. Well, the DVD came out, you know, I mean, how long ago after the movie was it? We made it in '79. So the DVD comes out and it says home movies shot by Steven Spielberg. And it's all this 8mm footage. And of course, Steven's in, you know, a third of it. And, that's when I saw it. That's when I saw the 8mm film.
Um, John Belushi and you had a good relationship on the set, correct?
I don't, you know, he was a good, I don't know. When it was one-on-one, we would talk and he would talk to me. But if we were in a crowd, he would make fun of me. He would tease me. I was 19 and he was 25, and he just would tease me relentlessly. But when one-on-one, we would do Brando impressions. So,
The
so
dueling Brandos.
here's the thing. This is 2 weeks before Dueling Brandos landed on Saturday Night Live. And I, you know, I walked up to him one day and I said, get up, you scum sucking pig, you know, and he goes, One-Eye Jacks. And we kept doing that. And then Dueling Brandos came. I never asked him. I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but it was you know, one of those times. And he was a great guy. And you know, I had seen him in the National Lampoon Review when I was 15 in New York. So 15 years old. I don't know how I ended up there by myself watching it. And that National Lampoon Review became Saturday Night Live, and it changed my life. I mean, it changed that's what I wanted to do.
Wow,
And then I was making a movie with Belushi.
that's amazing. But then let's rewind a little bit, because I mean, the Big Red One was released after 1941, but it was actually shot before 1941. And Sam Fuller, I mean, one of the greatest directors of all time, cast you in his film. You know, and on top of that, you're acting with Lee freaking Marvin. You know, tell us about that experience.
Well, Sam was just, first of all, these guys had fought in the Second World War, so they had fought in the war that we were making a movie about, which was insane. So you know, I just thought Lee hated me. I mean, he was so gruff, and Sam was you know, come here. Okay, here's the line. Okay, hey, so yeah, okay, roll it. I mean, you know, he you know, it was just like, oh, okay, great. And I said, Sam, I think Lee hates me. And he goes, oh, lad, he loves you. And okay, great. You know, and finally, I was doing a scene, and it was a rehearsal, and I raised up my arms in the rehearsal, and Lee goes, what's that? What's that with the arms? What are you doing? What the fuck is that? And I just unloaded on Lee Marvin stupidly. And I said, you want to talk to me? Talk to me through the director, you know, fuck you. And can we swear? I'm sorry, Roger.
No, of course you can.
Okay. And and all the guys, there was a bunch of young guys, Bobby Chico, Bobby Carradine,
Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill of Star Wars, yeah, and they all just stepped away from me. They all just stepped away and was like, "We're done. We're done with this guy." And I was alone. I was sitting, leaning against a truck tire, just thinking my life was over. And I hear this. So, you know, where you're from? And Lee Marvin sits down next to me in the dirt, and he was he was amazing, and he was until he died. We were, you know, he and his wife Pam were just like another family to me, and you know, so he was a great mentor and a great friend, and I was one of a couple actors at his funeral, and it, you know, it was a weird start, but he was a great guy, and a great. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but I realized, you know, you see Point Blank and all these movies, and you realize, oh my God, what a great actor. But I didn't know. I was 19. I had no idea, you know.
Correct. Let's take a peek at a scene from The Big Red One, you and Lee Marvin.
These dead guys give me the creeps.
Shit, Kaiser, something's always giving you the creeps.
Well, how come there aren't any dead GIs?
Shut up. Keep your eyes open.
Just like I said, Sergeant, just 3 dead Germans.
But the sergeant wasn't satisfied. He'd noticed something about the piping on their collar patches. They were different colors.
What color's that piping?
White.
White's infantry.
This is another film that was released. It got good reviews, but then it wasn't his cut, and it wasn't until after Sam Fuller's death that the film got closer to what he aspired. Was it hard for you to see the release version that wasn't the director's cut?
Yeah, I didn't like the movie. I mean, I don't know if I've ever said that, but I, you know, there were other movies that were war movies, Apocalypse Now, and modern films about Vietnam and stuff that I thought were really great, and I didn't appreciate that what was there. But then Richard Schickel, who was the Time critic, he got a hold of the movie and did a recut of what he thought was Sam's original cut, and it got so much better. I mean, it really became the movie it is today. And there was always great things in it, but it became, you know, a much fuller, no pun intended, a much more rich, you know, wonderful narrative. And Sam had shot 4 hours of film, usable cut narrative, but the studio at the time just said, make it, you know, 2 hours and that's it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were aware, Roger Ebert wrote a lengthy essay before he died about the film, and that is one of the greatest films. You know, he actually included in his collection of, you know, greatest movies that he reviewed. You know, there was an interesting fact both about 1941 and this film that the studio wanted John Wayne to be in The Big Red One and also in 1941.
Right.
And,
right.
Yeah.
Folks had them cast, or that was 20 years before we made the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, Lee was too old to play a sergeant, but he knew what it was like to be a sergeant in World War II. So that gravitas that he brought to it was, you know, stunning. I mean, and Lee, he knew what it was like to to bayonet somebody, and that's it was interesting to act with somebody that well, first of all, he every morning I would walk over and he would adjust my uniform, my wardrobe, to make it work, because I couldn't get dressed apparently in the morning. So
Yeah. So eventually, I mean, you continue working steadily in film, and you landed a role in John Sayles' Amen Out, and that will not be the last time that you work with John Sayles. Tell us about that, about landing Amen Out.
well, John was a friend. We had known each other. He had offered me something else that I couldn't do, but we were friends. And so he said, I want you to play one of the 8 Men in 8 Men Out. And I had actually I fractured my skull in a bike accident a few months before. And I said, I called him. I said, John, I can't do the movie. I can't even think. And he goes, you'll be fine, and hangs up on me. And that's John Sayles is just great. I mean, he's wonderful. But that wasn't the last time we worked together. He acted in my movie after that, and then I acted in Sunshine
State, correct. Yeah.
And he actually wrote my second movie, Men of War, which was a really fun experience, to have him write a movie and direct it.
What struck me getting ready for this conversation and seeing some of the films was that you've worked with really strong ensembles, in the Big Red One in 1941, and now you're in 8 Men Out, which is a phenomenal ensemble. You have John Cusack, you have John Mahoney, you have Charlie Sheen, D.B. Sweeney, and John Sayles has made a name for himself for this really strong ensemble films. What was it like for you to work in a John Sayles ensemble?
Well, I love doing that, because I like being, if you look at it as a stew, you go, well, I want to be that flavor. I want to be that color. And early on, I just took off, I took off my cap, because everyone was wearing their cap, in the dugout. And a lot of ball players take off their cap. And I took off my cap. I just did it as a routine. And Sayles goes, oh my gosh, that's great. Now I know who you are, because you're the guy, And so you find these moments amongst these really great actors, David Strathairn and Gordon Clapp, and these guys are the best. And you find, okay, I fit in there. I can do this. I understand the narrative in this way. And it's such a fun puzzle game, when you're part of a narrative, to go, I can contribute this. And when I'm not contributing this, I can shut up and be over here,
Mm-hmm. And that was that the first time that you met David Strathairn? Because you've developed quite a not only friendship but a working relationship with David Strathairn.
No, weirdly enough, I lived in a house in New Jersey with Sayles. It was like a weekend house for a lot of people, but Sayles and David Strathairn and Gordon Clapp was there, and it was a lot of the people from Return of the Secaucus 7. It was, and I love that movie. So I felt like I was sort of living in that movie, but I was 10 years younger than everybody else. So that was even better, because they were like older brothers to me, David and John, and then Maggie Renzi, Carolyn Brooks, all of these people that had done this movie.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at a scene from 8 Men Out, John Sayles directing.
Now, if we get it in advance, we put it down on the reds, it gets heavy odds,
it starts to multiply.
Just a couple of games we're talking, or the whole series?
That's one thing we'd have to work out. Now, the way I figure it.
Hey, guys.
Damn.
Freddie. You have to creep around like that, pal. You made Chick wet his pants.
How about letting me in?
In what? What are you talking about?
Whatever you guys got going. The fix.
You're in, Freddie.
What?
You want in, Freddie? You're in. Now, if you could just leave us alone here, we got some things to iron out.
Sure, sweet.
Freddie, keep a lid on it, huh?
Sure, sweet. You know me.
So John Sayles is an indie, director, and Aim Out has all this extras and in the baseball stadium, all the costumes and stuff. How did you guys make? I know it couldn't have cost that much, this movie, but it looks like a big budget film.
Yeah, I think it was $6 million or some. I mean, but it was a big movie for John, but he shot it really quickly. We used the same stadium for all of the stadium stuff. So we used it for Chicago and Chicago, and where was the other team? Great, I can't remember. And the secret really was Sayles working quickly, but also Robert Richardson, who's famous now for shooting Quentin Tarantino's movies and a lot of Scorsese's movies. And Richardson was so fast. I'd never seen a cinematographer work that quickly in television or anywhere. He was just lightning fast.
There is always this political engagement in his storytelling in John Sayles. In Odd Man Out, although he's dealing with the Chicago Sox scandal, in Sunshine State, etc., there's always this political undertone. Is that something that he discusses with you guys as you're filming, or he just lets
it's sort of inherent when you're working with him, but I would ask about it because I wanted to direct, and I was a writer, and he would read my scripts, and he has a photographic memory, so he could tell me exactly what my first script was today. If he walked in here, he could say, okay, page 1 was this. He remembers everything. And but he said something really interesting, which is all films are political, so you either make them political or you are aware of the politics, but all films are political. And if you are unaware or you deny the politics, it's to your own peril, really. But he's certainly overtly political, and social justice is a huge theme for him, and as it is for me, hopefully. And so he's amazing, and he's probably written 20 movies that have been made, and directed, I don't know, 12 or 13 features.
And through all this process, Perry, you're acting, but you're working with Spielberg, and he's giving you tips and showing you dailies, etc. And John Sayles is bringing you closer and talking to you about his scripts. When was the point that you said, hey, I want to be behind the camera and take the reins?
Well, I never thought, seriously, I never thought I could direct. I mean, that was stupid, but I did write, and I was writing and writing and writing and writing. And then Roger Hedden and I wrote Winter Ball. We sold it. And
what was the year for that?
Oh God, what was that? You have me. I was 30, so a long time ago. And but I gave it to this producer, Larry Estes, who had done all these movies, and And he goes, oh, I love this. Let's make this. He goes, I don't have the money to make it. If you had $1 million movie, I would make that movie. And I said, that's amazing because I have $1 million movie. I'll give it to you. And I went home and wrote it. So that was how I got Little Vegas made, because I brought it to him and said, here's $1 million movie. And he goes, great, we're making it. And it was this moment of chutzpah, and who knew? So I didn't think of myself as a director. I thought of myself as an actor, writer, and then directing came, and it worked out. I mean, it just was. It was. I never made a lot of money as an actor, but I was able to make some money as a director, especially in television.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a look at Little Vegas, your first film.
It's a story about when to play your cards.
Hey, do you got a gun there? What kind is it? Deadly. It's a deadly gun.
When to hold your cards.
Whoa! What the hell do you think you're doing?
Listen, I'm the parent here, not you. I am. I'm the parent.
And when to deal yourself a whole new hand. It's Little Vegas. Starring Anthony John Dennison, Catherine O'Hara, Michael Nouri, Jay Thomas, John Sayles, Anne Francis, and Jerry Stiller.
Nice cast.
Yeah.
And you actually told me a very sweet story that you were at the Deauville Film Festival and Sam Fuller saw your film. Tell us that story.
Well, I took the film to Deauville, and it never, it never caught on the way it caught on here, the way it caught on in France. And Le Monde wrote this 2-page spread on the film, and it was really spectacular. And they Goodfellas had come out at around the same time, and so they compared it to that, and it was this moment. But everybody had expected Sam Fuller to show up at Deauville. Sam was sort of a legend at Deauville, and the French loved him, and he wasn't showing up. He wasn't arriving, and they would say, look, Sam's going to come, and he never would show up, and Sam's going to come. So the closing party at the film festival, and I thought, I just would have been so great if Sam was here to see, the success of the film, and people loved it, and it was a party. It was outside, and the crowd sort of split. And there's Sam, who was not tall as a human being, but he was big-natured and just a force of nature. And it split. And Sam walks up to me, and he goes, "Lad!" And I thought, I've never heard that voice before, And he goes, "Come here." And I lean closer, and Sam, and he slaps me across he slaps me so hard, my ears are ringing. And
Wow.
"Lad, I'm proud of you." And, it's just a moment that will, and people clapped, here was Sam Fuller, and, and it was really it was just a moment. And, but to this day, filmmakers, Quentin Tarantino, all, people are like, "You worked with Sam Fuller." Oh my God, Sam Fuller. And, but I was a kid,
So you would, of all, of Spielberg, of Sayles, of Fuller, which is the one that has impacted you the most in your directing style and in your writing?
You know, it's weird. Probably Sayles, I think, was a mentor to me. David Milch was a huge mentor to me in television. Adrian Lyne was a real influence on me. We were friends, but I acted in Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's an amalgam of all of these people, but you know, if I had to pick one, I would say John Sayles for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. And what is it about him that you've assimilated?
I think what you said about the overt political nature of the movie and social justice, but characters that are rich and you know, protagonists that are powerful and heartfelt. You know, um, it's just it's character movies, and and there's a reason he was, you know, one of the fathers of independent cinema, and he just wrote that way, and he was always very responsible with a buck, mostly, you know, because it was his buck. So he financed a lot of his own movies and made money off of that as well, even though they were not overt commercial movies.
Hmm. Now, you made a very successful career. And it continues in directing TV. You know, tell us about that transition to behind the camera and for TV.
Well, after my first movie, I got an overall deal at Warner Brothers, but you know, I didn't television. I didn't know really about it. But David Milch, who I'd worked with on Bay City Blues, he was a writer on Bay City Blues. He had an office near me, and he, you know, he would read my writing, and he said, you know, I have this thing, NYPD Blue, that's coming up, and he said, you want to write on it? And I said, no, I'm going to go do a movie. And I went to direct a movie, and I came back and I said, you know, this NYPD Blue thing is great. Can I write on it? And he said, no, we're staffed, but maybe direct. And I said, okay, great. And so he gave me my first job directing in television, and that one episode was terrific. I mean, it was wonderful. It was really well written. I sat in with him. I stupidly gave him notes on the script, which you never do in television. But I didn't know that you don't give a writer notes as a director in television, but I did. And he was like, okay, great, good idea, you know, whatever, or that's a horrible idea, or whatever. We had a dialogue. And finally, I think somebody took me aside and said, what the fuck are you're giving David Milch notes? Are you, what the fuck, go, you know? But it turned out well, and I did a bunch of those, and I did 100 hours of television. So that's how I can live in Santa Barbara, basically. And that's how I can raise kids in Santa Barbara, is because of television. And I did 70 hours of television as an actor, but the 100 hours, and the Directors Guild is sort of an amazing thing where you actually make a living.
And how do you see, I mean, you've worked, I think I mentioned some of the shows that you've worked, you know, Weeds and NCISS, Los Angeles, etc. Do you see this, you know, people are calling it this second coming of TV now, that the fact that we're in this incredible renaissance of TV. How do you feel about it?
You know, I don't want to be a naysayer, because there's great things and there are great moments, and you know, there are things that I love on television, but I feel like I see the algorithm through all these streaming devices. I think that they're playing to a demographic and not to a human being. You don't see this labor of love. I feel like there's a corporation that's saying, string them out, string them out, string them out. Don't end it, don't end it. String it out, string it out. You know, it's like, okay. And when you walk into a bar and you have a drink with somebody, so let me tell you a story. You don't go, let's finish this next week because I have another chapter for you. You you tell a story, and it's like, and you don't, you get punched in the face if you don't give the ending.
Well, there are exceptions. There's actually a lot. You have shows that are finite, that are only 10 episodes, and they flip.
Right. And I really, and to that point, I love that one about the Hasidic woman who moves to Berlin.
Yes, the unorthodox.
Orthodox, yeah, because that really felt like it was 4 episodes, but that narrative just cooked, and you go, yeah, that's a 4-hour movie. But often I just feel like, and it's rare, and there are those gems that are great. I just a closed-end narrative, a story with an ending that takes to your heart and crushes it, is a wonderful thing. And I certainly, I just wish we had more of that. And I worry about movies. I mean, look, you're a film festival, so nobody loves movies more than you, Roger. So I'm preaching to the choir, but I just love a movie, and I worry that it's an endangered species.
Well, I'm an optimist, and I don't see it as a dying thing. I think it's going to continue. As long as we have people that are passionate about it and that want to talk to one another about it, I think we'll have film. Now, tell me about the personal projects, and before you do that, let's take a quick look at your last film that starred your good friend David Strathairn, Interview with God.
Salvation is real, Paul, and it can still happen for you, but you need to understand something very important. Faith isn't something that you can just have, not in the conventional sense, because faith isn't the goal. Faith is the process. It's a lot like a marriage. The vows you take aren't the end, they're just the beginning. It takes time and dedication every day. Wow. Paul, would you like to know when it will happen?
No.
You and I have talked about this film. I was so hesitant to see in it because I'm not into faith-based films, and then I saw it and I was so moved by it and engaged. You didn't write the script. This was brought to you to direct. Tell us what compelled you to latch on to this project.
It's just a great story. I mean, it's and the pitch of it, a journalist meets a guy who says he's God, and they hash it out in 3 long, 25-page scenes. That doesn't, I wouldn't even click on that on Netflix. So it just really, it's such a great story, and it's really about faith and not about religion. It's not about the Bible. It's about crisis of faith, and this journalist had gone to Afghanistan, and his whole world was going sideways, and so it was really his story, and it's such a strong. Ken Aguado had written such a strong protagonist, and God, David Strathairn was so great, and Brenton
He's terrific in it.
the guy was so great. So you have great scenes that are long and meaty. It's like theater. So it's we shot it all soup to nuts. The takes would be, and you couldn't do this on film because you'd only have 10 minutes on a magazine, but in digital you can go for a long time. The poor sound men on the movie were, losing their mind because they have to hold the boom for that long. But it really was, it was really an engaging piece. We shot it in 3 weeks in New York City, and it just came out great. So it did really well at the box office and on Netflix, and it's still out there. But it was such a great, soup to nuts, just a great experience.
Directing actors, you've had a long relationship with David Strathairn, not only as a fellow actor, but also as a friendship and stuff. How does that feed into directing him into a film like this? Does it make it easier to work together?
I think that it's people have this misconception about directing. They think it's telling somebody what to do or how to do it. With David, you support him any way you can. You're there to say this works, this maybe doesn't, but it's what doesn't work with David, you would be thrilled with most other actors. He's so it's really supporting. It's really there carrying somebody's water and guiding and encouraging. It's not directing is and by and large this is true with all the disciplines and all the crafts and all the disciplines in film. You're just there to support and guide and bring out the best work in people. And it's easy to do. Brenton Thwaites, by the way, come on, he was great, and David was great, and together, they fed off of each other, and you just support that whenever possible. So it's not telling anybody what to do, really, in my book. It's supporting and helping.
Now, your relationship with David continues, your collaboration with him. You're working on a new project that you've written and that you want to get off the ground. Tell us about this new project.
Yeah, it's a film we're going to do in India, and it's called Girl in the Woods, and it's in India, if you're a police officer and you die in the line of duty, you've already picked a child of yours to take your job. So literally in small towns, it sounds crazy but true, there are 5 and 6 year old kids with little uniforms on running to get chai and filing stuff. And my story is about a 13-year-old girl who looks for the murderer of her father. So it's a murder mystery, but it involves, it's sort of Chinatown in a small Indian village. And J.J. Gittes is a 13-year-old detective. But it's not fantastical. It's gritty and great. And David plays an American mining contractor who's ready to take this mountain close by. So it's she runs into him, and it's their connection helps solve the mystery.
And you're actively looking for finance for the film.
Yeah. It's shot in rupees and sold in dollars. This is the cheapest movie anybody will ever pay for. But it's it's got a lot of social justice themes, but it's surrounded in a real hard genre. It's a it's a it's a it's a detective story, but it's, you know, turned on its head, and it's India, and it's good. It really is good.
So, Perry, looking back at your career, you know, all the acting that you've done, all the TV, all your directing, has it been what you imagined, what you expected?
It's been so, you know, I remember thinking early on, you know, if I could just get a guest shot on Love American Style, that would be amazing. And then you go, oh, I'm the guest star on MASH. I'm the guest star on MASH. I'm gonna die on MASH. I can't get any better than this. And so I had very low expectations. So to me, it's always been great, and I've really been very happy getting, you know, where I've gotten to go. And I've been yeah, I didn't go, you know, I didn't point to left field and say it's going over that fence. Maybe I should have, maybe you know, who knows. But I really had a great 45-year career, and happy I still want to make movies, and I think I will.
Well, good to hear. Let's I forgot to bring up Sunshine State, and I have a clip for it. I want to show it because it's a great scene with you and Edie Falco in one of her early film performances. So let's take a look at Sunshine State.
We realize this is a big decision for you. One of the oldest businesses left on the beach. The family goes back generations in the area.
You're not from the plantation? There were some men here yesterday.
Did they make you an offer?
They're just sniffing around, I guess.
Oh, the people are relentless.
Oh, you're not?
Well, the Exley plantation is only for the elite, whereas what we have in mind is a much more democratic kind of development, something for everybody.
Convenience stores, burger chains, T-shirts.
Retail outlets, yes, that would be part of it.
123 empty?
Should be. Your husband called and needs to talk to you.
I don't need to talk to him. You want to develop anything on this island, you can forget about it without the county commission in your pocket.
I'm sure we can work something out.
What films impacted you a lot this past year?
Oh, Roger, I don't know what I saw.
You forget?
Last year, oh my God. Well, I love Nomadland, and not just because David Strathairn was in it, I mean, to me, that movie was this wonderful hybrid of documentary and narrative, and it really, weirdly, I follow some crazy things on YouTube, and this guy Bob Wells, who has a speech.
Correct. Yeah.
Dying. I had heard that on his channel on YouTube, and to have that fit so neatly into the narrative was really mind blowing.
Yeah. You could see the John Sayles influence on her storytelling,
right?
Which it was perfect that David was part of it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, she was really, what a subtle, great hand she has, and she's.
And did you find that this year was productive for you creatively? Did you find more time to write, etc.?
You know, I wish I'd written more, but there's never a year where I don't wish I'd written more. But I did. I taught on Zoom, which was fun, and I really I took up tennis, you know, who knows, but I've learned to enjoy myself more, maybe, and then this idea, we thought we were going to go make the movie, and then COVID hit India really hard. So it's been a process of that, and we have to wait for, the raging fires of COVID.
So I mean, but this Indian film, it's not just waiting on finance. It's just waiting for COVID to die down. But you're gonna go shoot it no matter what.
We're gonna shoot it no matter what, and I just don't believe it's finance. I know it's what everybody worries about. I'm not worried about it. I think we'll get the money and we'll go make the movie. It's good. But it's such a great story. I just think that, and it's so cheap to make. So it's funny. I just think that's not going to be a problem.
Now, I should have asked this question earlier. What is it? How does it feel for you to work with Mary-Louise Parker, who you've worked several times in Weeds and other films, and she is the sister of your wife?
Well, it was nerve-wracking in the beginning because we were both, squaring off with each other, and we thought, well, this is going to be a disaster, and this is going to be a disaster, and it turned out to be great. I mean, we love working with each other. I love working with her. She's recommended me for everything, and she has, when she got into a position, my agents booked me on Weeds, and then this is a bad story. I shouldn't probably tell it, but my agents booked me on Weeds, and I had a meeting with the executive producer, and the woman in the meeting says in the meeting, she goes, well, Mary-Louise Parker, she's nothing but trouble. And I mean, I think, and she said it in a less polite way. And I go, well, she's my sister-in-law. And there were two of them there, and their faces just dropped. And I was booked. They gave me a number. My agent said they just want to talk to you before you go to work. And I was booked on the show. And the next thing out of this woman's mouth was, well, we're booked this year, but maybe next year we'll have an opening, and so that was it. I said she was it couldn't have gone worse. And then, so when Mary-Louise had power, she goes, you're hiring Perry Lang. And then it worked out, and she kept going, now you're hiring Perry Lang again. And, it was great, but it was, it could have been a disaster. I mean, it could have been a train wreck, but it happened to work out great. And it's directing her in television is like driving a Ferrari around a Walmart parking lot. She's so good. And television is, in that case, is so limiting. She just is such a good actor. So again, to be able to sit on an apple box near a camera and watch Mary-Louise Parker work is sort of a gift that most people won't have.
Well, great. Well, I'm so happy we got to chat this way, Perry.
I know we're friends, so it's weird having an interview with your friend, but it's good to talk to you.
No, it feels terrific, and I wish you all the best with the Indian. What's the name of the Indian film? So I can stop calling it the Indian film.
Girl in the Woods. Yeah.
Excellent.
The protagonist is a girl, but she meets another girl in the woods. So yeah.
Very good. Well, Perry, congratulations on the lengthy career and more to come, correct?
Thank you, Roger. This is really
excellent. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.